I'm just waiting for it to go live. I think we've got it now. Fantastic. So hello people and welcome. There we go. There, no feedback. So fantastic. Welcome to this week's Wednesday Live. I'm doing them weekly on my YouTube channel at 9 p.m. GMT. And today I'm going to be assembling a 3D guitar. Now, some of you will have seen my stream a few weeks ago when I made a 3D guitar, well, I assembled a 3D printed guitar, which I've actually now spray painted. The first coat of purples on there at the moment. On this one, I have put Bondo on it. I think Bondo is what you call it in America. It's basically flexible car filler. I put that on, I put a DC promoter on it and some high build primer, and then I've sprayed it purple. It's going to have a slight sandback, another coat of purple, and some special effects put on it. That is basically for the book I'm writing on customizing electric guitars, where I'm basically going to have a book which shows a range of different finish techniques. And on the one I'm about to assemble, I'm going to have a technique which emphasizes the 3D print quality of it. Whereas this one, I've obviously tried to hide that with that filler and stuff on it. Why am I doing that? Well, the reason I want to emphasize the 3D print is on a recent Guitar Builders Collective live stream, the thing that I host every Thursday here, Ray from Tasmaniac Guitars and Mark Gutierrez were on, and they were both discussing the idea of how beautiful 3D printed guitars are and the way you get those kind of layer lines on it. The layer lines are like a bit of beauty. They help show the process. You can see them really clearly here. Show the process of the printing and show you what the technology is. So I want to do something that emphasizes that. I've got a really cool idea. I will tell you about that a little bit later on because I want to get on with making. But let me tell you what's different today to the build I made last time. If you remember this one, Ray from Tasmaniac Guitars was quite horrified by the fact that I printed it on quite a low setting, print quality setting. He sent me some better qualities, which we'll talk about in a minute for these. He thinks that the problem with a low quality print setting is it's not going to be strong enough. So after a bit of time, the body will start to warp as the tension from the strings to the bridge, so from the nut coming across to the bridge here, the saddles here, is going to pull and cause the plastic to bend. Now, I print it at low quality. It has quite large parts that jigsaw together, and what I found is the 5 weeks that I had it strung up, nothing happened to it. It was still fine. So I think it's possible it might be okay. We'll see. It's an experiment for me. It's an experiment for Ray as well, just to see if that low print quality will work. What I've got here are the parts to assemble, and we've printed them at a higher quality. So essentially the core of the guitar, the part that goes along the middle that takes all the stress, is a higher density infill and thicker walls than the outer parts. That's number one. If you remember on this one, when I assembled it, it was in 2 layers, the top and the bottom part, which assembled together. And I said to Ray, it reminded me a bit of when I assembled molds. My background is as an artist. I used to work for artists who made bronzes, and we used to make casts for theirs in silicon and plaster. And we'd always have in the 2 parts of the mold that fit together, parts that key it together to make sure it doesn't slip at all. Because what I found is putting the top and bottom on this, it was a matter of trying to match the top and bottom up and hold it in place whilst I welded it. Well, Ray's made me these little parts, which you'll see in a minute, these funny shapes, go into the jigsaw parts and help hold it together and key the top and bottom together. So that should be pretty cool. I'm just going to hang this up because I only painted it today and I realise it's probably not quite dry enough and it might be being marked. So let's hang it up there. Right, I've also got different cameras set up, so I'm going to change my camera in a minute so you can see a top-down view of what I'm making. I'm going to make here, so this camera here is also going to be able to catch it quite well, hopefully. But I'll angle that better in a moment, so you can see it better in a moment. Now, what I want to say is this week, the stream, I'm wearing a Mr. Glim's pickup top. Now, Glyn's one of the regulars on the Guitar Builders Collective chat. Great guy. Really love his chats that we have, his discussion. I really like his way of thinking, and I love the way he makes pickups. I have yet to buy some pickups from him. I haven't really had the need to buy pickups since I've met him properly at a good quality. I've been buying some cheapo pickups for testing things on, and the pickups that I normally use, obviously there's a thing about importing across the world from New Zealand to here. So I want to get the right ones off of him. If you've used his, let me know. I think they might be great for something like this. He's also 3D printing one of Ray's guitars. So you'll see him on our next week's Guitar Builders Collective live stream. On that live stream, we're going to be talking about 3D printing jigs and tools. So anyway, let me know where you're from. If you're watching now, join me in the chat. If you're watching in the future, let me know in the comments. I've got a few things I want to show you before I start building. Let me swap my camera around. So like, here's my setup. What I've got that I'm not going to use today is my mask, which I would normally use when I'm doing almost anything in my workshop that involves chemicals. And my mask is, I wear a half mask in here, and when I'm doing my spraying, I wear a full mask. This has got an ABEK1 filter in it. And the ABEK1 filters are like the highest filter you can get, because it filters out almost everything. And I think that's kind of what I need when I'm using my plastic weld. So the thing about the plastic weld is, unlike a glue, it basically bonds the two parts of plastic that I'm putting together. And essentially, when those two parts are bonded, the strength of the bond is as strong as the plastic itself. So it is quite smelly. Risk of getting high, I guess, off of it. Risk of it doing bad things to your brain. So what I'm going to do, last time I assembled all the parts one at a time and kind of pushed them together. What I thought I'd do is, I'm working on this flatter surface than last time. Last time I was on my main work surface, which was underneath this. This is like a board on top of it. And that main work surface underneath has had loads of stuff done on it. So it's got bits of glue, bits of lumps, everything was a little bit wobbly. Let me just change my stream so it's like this. Maybe it might be nicer like that for now. So what I'm going to do is lay the bits out and try and lay it out all flat on the surface here, and then weld it together. So we'll see how that works. I'm not 100% sure how good that will be. Hey, hello Wayne Six Strings from Plymouth. Wayne, were you in the chat earlier for the Guitar Builders Collective? I think you were. I recognise your name anyway. And if you're Plymouth, you're probably a friend of, or a follower at least, of Paul from Wildhouse Studios. Right, so what I'm doing is, for those of you that don't know, with a 3D print, in order for it to print without collapsing while the printer's going, sometimes you need to support something. So if you imagine you're printing a bridge, as it's printing the bit that goes over the top of the bridge, it would collapse unless it has a support underneath it. So that's essentially what these bits are that I'm pulling out now. You'll see that this sort of plastic support that I've just pulled out, oh, I've got my pliers to help with any bits that get caught. This plastic support matches perfectly with the circles which sort of indent in. And by the way, I haven't gone for any color scheme. I'm just using up the plastic that I had, except I think all the green is the base layer. It's gone a bit funny on some of the printing. It's a bit odd. Something I might have to ask Ray about. It's sort of, I wonder how well that will come out on the camera. Can you see there, the print, which should have gone around the edge, seems to have pulled up the surface a bit. Oh, Wayne Six Strings in the chat. I'm glad you were there earlier and follow Paul. So out of interest, Wayne, and anyone else that's watching in the future, how did you hear about this channel? The Devil and Sons channel. I've been doing it for ages, but I'm sort of mainly doing live streams this year, because the time it takes me to edit videos for the type of videos I do is pretty intense. So sort of a 10-minute video, a lot of my videos range from 5 minutes to half an hour. A lot of those videos will take me a day to edit, sometimes 2 days. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling out these support sections. And what I think is, by doing these live streams, I'm essentially making content that people find interesting. It may not be edited in the same way, so it might not be as concise, but you'll get the live, you'll be able to skip through it all, see everything actually happening. I may not be able to have exactly the same close-up shots that I have in my other videos, where I try to get really high production value, but hopefully the different angles are going to help here. Or have I just frozen? Let me just double check. That's the other problem with live. I've just got it going on my other screen. Oh yeah, no, it seems fine. Okay. No, yeah, it has frozen. Anyway, that's the other thing about if I edit it, you won't get any frozen bits, but there you go. Where am I at now? Yeah, I also have a membership to the channel, and with the members, I'm doing another live stream every Monday, which is only about 10 minutes long, sometimes slightly longer if there's more people in the chat. But in that live stream, I'm doing a tour of my workshop. So each week I focus in on a different part of my workshop. This week I happen to look at just my new soldering setup I have. But like in previous weeks, I've looked at my spray booth, I've looked at my storage that I have for certain things, I'm looking at certain jigs. So basically just trying to give an overview of what's happening in my workshop each week, focusing on a different bit. So it's much more detailed than if I made a single video about it, because if I made a single video including all of that detail, that video would be very, very long. So what's interesting to know is if, oh, Wayne's just said he's planning his first build. I was going to say it's always good to know if anyone watching, while you're watching, are you builders yourself? Or like me, I follow a lot of channels where people build things that I'm never going to build, but I love watching people build. I love finding out about new techniques. So yeah, that's cool. Thanks for joining today, Wayne. Yeah, we're all quite different. So for example, Paul does his build series where each week or each episode it sort of is the next stage of building, whereas mine are more how to do very certain things. What have I done here? Do you know what? I'm pulling this apart and I've realized maybe the green isn't all of just the bottom part, whereas before I had it all organized when I was assembling it. It's a bit more disorganized today. Right, I think what I'm going to have to do is pull out all the supports from all the parts and then and then assemble it. That's weird. So I would imagine all the thicker parts, there we go, all the thicker parts are one layer and all the thinner parts are the next layer. That makes more sense. So with this print quality, each one of these parts printed in a much lower rate than the print quality of the last one I assembled. But like I said, Ray from Tasmaniac Guitars, and by the way, Tasmaniac Guitars do prints like this that you can buy, but he also has a few free ones up as well, where he asks you just to donate to charity if you're printing them off. That one where he said it wasn't good enough quality, might not last. I printed, I think, the whole of the base layer and the whole of the top layer in a day each. With this one, each part took about 5 hours. Some were a bit quicker, some were a bit longer. So I was doing it over a couple of weeks, just printing every now and then. Hence why I don't remember exactly where everything was. Oh, that's a satisfying click. And it feels quite different. He's broken the guitar up slightly differently. So the jigsaw sort of way it assembles is different. And what he said about the jigsaw assembly is it's a way really of giving it a lot of strength, because the outer walls are more solid than the kind of infilled areas. And therefore, because you've got that jigsaw going all over the place, you've got these outer walls everywhere through it. Hey, Menno's here as well in the chat. Welcome, Menno. We need to arrange a date, Menno, for you to come back on the Guitar Builders Collective chat now that your internet is up and running. Ooh. Something just happened, but I can't see what it is on my chat. I will check in one moment. Let me just try and get this bit out. Wow. The other thing about it being a more dense infill is some of these bits are much harder to get out. There we go. Just going to come over to my other camera. Hey, Ray's here. Hello, Ray. You're watching me butcher one of your prints. There we go. Look at that. Popped out. So I don't know if you can see that. This is the part that popped out just there. And the part that pops out, you can sort of almost see through it because it's really low density. So it's much easier to pull out. It's just basically there as a support for the rest of the print piece together. I've totally lost track of time, but if Ray is on now, is that early in the morning for you, Ray, or is it still in the middle of the night? Do you know what I can see? Let's put a support in this little hole on the side. That's a pain. I may have to this little hole here, which is where a screw would go. The way I've had the print set up is decided to put a support in there. Oh, I'm gonna have to drill that out when it comes to putting the screws in. Right, never mind. Right, let's get on with it. Right, so some of the questions that have just appeared. Sorry not to share the questions on screen, but that would involve me stopping and pressing buttons. I just want to get on with things, so I'll read the questions out. And it is maybe repeating slightly what I'm doing. Hey, Barry, welcome. I'm sure there's some people watching as well who can't comment because maybe they don't have like a YouTube account. So, Menno, on this guitar, the middle section, the core part that goes from the neck pocket to the bridge onto the back, that's printed at a higher density infill, so it's more solid on the inside. The pattern that it's printing at is more intense as well, or more complicated, so it gives it a bit more strength. But also the way Ray designs it, because it's like a jigsaw part, that core center bit, the way the walls go around it, because the outer walls of each segment of this are stronger than the internal part, that's just going to add to the strength. So the core solid bit that goes from the neck pocket to the bridge and to the back is higher density than the sides are. That also means it's slightly heavier. The one that I've made before from Ray, I printed off at a very low density, but it surprisingly seems to hold up, even though Ray didn't think it would do necessarily. And I think that's partly because of all those walls from the jigsaw. But that one I've made for myself. I'm going to keep it, and let's see what happens over time. Whereas this one I may keep, but I may sell or give away or something. Right. I think one reason I want to get all the infill bits out or support bits out now is while I'm assembling, I might just forget a part, which was some advice that someone in the last live stream gave me. It's easy to miss a bit if you don't do it all at the beginning. And I didn't do it in advance of the live stream because I wanted to chat while I was doing it. Great. Yeah, dark magic. Right, so now I've got the base bits are the thicker bits. I'm going to just switch to this camera for the moment, and I can expand this camera if the picture isn't big enough in a moment. Actually, let's just do that straight away. Here we go. So you can see my full setup here. And my Radian mug. Radian make router bits, but they also have some 3D things you can get off their website to print, like fret radius gauges. Sorry, I was just thinking while I was saying that. I do really like their router bits. Since I've swapped to using Radian, I've definitely noticed an improvement in the quality of the bits to the ones I'd had before, and therefore the ease of me routing and the quality of the cuts is just so much better. Right, so in case you missed it earlier on, I'm doing all of this on a really flat surface, whereas before my workbench had a few lumps on it from glue, etc. And because I'm doing it on this really flat surface, I reckon I can get it all perfectly flat When I assembled the other one, used the plastic weld. Plastic weld makes the joins as strong as the plastic. What I noticed was there was occasionally a little bit of height discrepancy. I can see in the chat. So if you're watching in the future, you can click on it and watch the live chat that you're missing out on. But I can see in the chat a discussion about tone wood. Ray in the chat is the designer of this, came on the Guitar Builders Collective podcast one week to discuss tone plastics. So the idea that, or tone polymers, the idea that he'd noticed that some polymers, some plastics did actually sound different, and presumably the way you infill it might sound different as well. So Barry's asking what glue are you using. I'll show you that again in a minute. I'm going to try and do something Ray might not recommend, which is I am assembling it all without putting any glue in yet. I've got an idea why that is. Yeah, look, it's such a tight fit. Even, oh, there you go. So I think that without putting the glue on, it's allowing me to get it really flat. So I'm not using glue, Barry. I'm using EMA Model Supplies plastic weld. Now, I've seen a few different companies sell plastic weld. Ray recommends a different one, which I can't get in this country. And the plastic weld essentially allows it to bond together the parts as opposed to gluing it together. The bonding it makes the connected parts as strong as the plastic itself. So my thought is I'm going to assemble it like this and then plastic weld the inside that you're not going to see. And especially as I've then got these parts that Ray's made for me. Ray, I don't know if you've done this before, if this was the first time you've done it, which allow me to key the top and bottom together to make sure everything lines up perfectly. Yeah, you know, I feel this is so strong just assembling it like this that you don't even need the weld. Oh, it might be mallet time. Definitely building up a sweat here. Hold on, let me get my mallet. I was wondering whether to have the mallet handy from the beginning, but I was thinking, no, I've got the strength. Here we go. I can see the tone wood debate. Barry, remind me, what country are you in? Yeah, I feel this is so tight. You are in the UK, Barry. So I got this. I can't remember where I got this. They sell small bottles of it on Amazon because I've definitely bought small bottles of it before. But this big one I got from I think I can't remember if it was a sign maker's supplier or I just basically did a Google for plastic weld and found it. The percussive persuasion device. That's what Ray has called this. So basically, Menno, back to your question before, these middle parts are the high density ones. I remember now, the green parts I printed are all the ones where it's printed at higher density, and the other colors are the ones that are printed at a lower density, still higher than last time. So that's going to have real strength in it. Right, let's get on with the outer parts now. So one thing I'm noticing is there must be more strength to this than the parts I printed last time, because the parts I printed last time just pushed in much easier than this. Maybe they had a little bit more flex because of the quality of the print. Ready? Satisfying. I can see the amount of people. What's happening there? The amount of people watching this is dropping in and out. That's weird. Is that right? Yeah, that is right. So yeah, like I was saying before, I'm trying to do these live streams to replace my having to edit videos together. It doesn't take up much longer than actually doing the job, apart from I keep stopping to talk. But maybe this is the bit I would skip in the editing. Right, nearly there. Right, there we go. That, I feel like that is super solid and so strong. I don't know if it needs the plastic weld, but anyway, let's just do it like this. The only part that doesn't quite match is here. It's just pulled apart slightly, but everything looks so good. A whack-a-mole guitar puzzle. Definitely. Right. I should 3D print a hammer. Right. So what I'm going to do now is, because all this is here in place, but this side is the side you're not going to see because I'm now going to make the top part to put on it. I very strongly feel like I can just put plastic weld on this and it can seep into the gaps. And it doesn't matter if I get it on the surface and bond it a bit and it looks a bit crap, because you're not going to see any of that. I do like those colours together though, just by chance. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to use my plastic weld. I would, like I said before, normally wear a mask, but I'm not going to today because I'm going to be chatting while I do it. Let's just change my camera around a bit more. Well, that didn't zoom in that much, did it? And let me move this camera, which has jogged so much in the hammering. Hello. Let's angle this. I don't know. Sorry. Hopefully that will work. That angle might be a bit better. Right. Quid. A quid is a pound. I'm just answering Menno in the chat. I remember my daughter started talking about bucks at one point, watching too much American TV. Right, so look, the plastic weld is literally a liquid, and when you put it in, I mean, will it seep into the gaps? Maybe, maybe not, but it's going to hopefully join these cracks on the surface together a bit. And like I said, I don't think it really matters because it's held together so strongly. And if you see where Ray's made the holes here, where the key parts are going to go, I'm going to put the weld in there, and that's going to attach this bit of plastic. Is going to weld those two parts together anyway. I think it's going to have plenty of strength. Let's see. Let's see as we go along. I'm doing this as a sort of experiment. Yeah, I don't know if Ray's still there, but and before I've even really put those keying parts in, I've got to say I think they're a brilliant addition, Ray. So my plan on the paint job on this that I mentioned earlier on. So essentially, the hammer doesn't work very well with this camera being there. Hold on, let me see if I can reposition it. Got this rubbish holder for the camera. Well, it's not rubbish. It fits really well if my camera doesn't have this stupid case that I've put in it. Let's try turning it around like that. And using my cup to hold it in place. There we go. Hopefully that will help it a bit more. Yes, so the There we go. So one of the techniques I'm going to be demonstrating in the book is acrylic pouring, because I've noticed a few people doing it on guitars recently. It's a really popular kind of craft art method. If you don't know it, it's using acrylic paint, but a special sort of dilution of acrylic paint, which makes it really fluid. I think you can do it using the same fluid medium that you use in an airbrush, which basically um, makes the acrylic much thinner. But you use acrylic pouring to pour paint onto a canvas and kind of move it around. It looks like a sort of marbling effect on the canvas. And I want to do that on here. And what I'm hoping is the way that the layer lines appear, or the connection of the jigsaw appears, that might disrupt the pouring somehow. So maybe, for example, some of the pour will get caught in a bit of the layer lines or something like that. Bit of the jigsaw, maybe a bit of the jigsaw will show through. So the acrylic pouring will be just on the top of this and somehow be accentuated by the actual process that this instrument has gone through to be made. So it will reveal that. Right, Menno's saying the connection's kind of slow. It would be good if anyone else can tell me if the connection is slow, because what I can do is lower the quality of my camera. Yeah, okay, I'm noticing now when I'm watching, it does seem to be a bit like that. But anyway, I'll just wait for anyone else in the chat to let me know. It'd be good to know that, because then in the future I'll just set it up on a lower quality in the first place. Unfortunately, my internet isn't great in my workshop. I need to improve that if I'm going to do so many live streams. Yeah, and so the other 3D printed guitar, the one you saw earlier that I put in purple, Menno, great to see you. Thanks for joining in. Good luck with the home improvements, and do let me know when you're ready to come on the podcast again. If you don't know it, Menno has been on the podcast before. If you haven't seen it, sorry, go and check it out. That's on the Guitar Builders Collective podcast. He is a very inspiring person, not just in his guitar building, but just in his general approach to life. But also, he moved to Ecuador, to the rainforest, and builds guitars there. And one thing I found really interesting is the sort of hazards we might have in our workshops, our normal hazards, very different to him when he has to deal with bats coming in and doing their business all over his tools, and like crazy insects and lizards and stuff. Plus the fact he doesn't really have or the internet isn't so great, he doesn't have proper power and has to be off of a generator. And I think he said he has some solar power maybe, but you've got to be quite self-sufficient. So I see Ray's in the chat. Okay, so it's not too bad, he's saying, the internet connection. Ray, what do you think about this idea of just not putting the weld on the actual joins, but doing it like this? Is this crazy? Right. So what I'm going to do is, oh, and also the other thing that's going to help join these parts together is the parts that go on the top surface. The jigsaw's at a different position to the part that's on the bottom surface, which means it's going to match up differently. It's going to overlap, and that's going to help because I'm going to put the plastic weld between the two pieces. That's going to help hold those together anyway. So I think it's all right. I've just seen a few little lumps in here that I want to get rid of so that these joining pieces fit in perfectly. That seems all right. Let me just see, how do they... Yeah, they're going to need a whack in as well. I might do that now. I don't know if it's best to do this now or do this when the top is ready to go on. Let's move my camera here around a bit so you can see what I'm doing a bit better. That's annoying. The clip's broken on it, so it's flipping. So I'm putting the weld around the edge of the blue. And then I'm going to drop, oh, I've got it all over my fingers now. I'm sure that's super healthy. Here we go. So it only sticks up very slightly, but that's enough so that when I put the top surface on, it's going to key it in place and really make sure that everything lines up perfectly. I've got to say, I've just printed it in some random colours. I'm really loving it. The green, the red and white I bought for making, or the green and white, sorry, I bought for making Christmas decorations. I already had the red. I've been making all the tools in my workshop that I'm 3D printing are in red. And then the orange is part of my colour scheme that I'm using for all my storage in the workshop. Right. Kind of like these little blue blobs in it. So yeah, one thing I've noticed is maybe I'm talking more, or maybe it is that it was thicker and harder to push together, but this definitely seems to be taking me a bit longer than the other method. I'm sure it's more secure. Oh, so how much does a body cost? So Ray might remember how much filament this took up, but I think it took me about 2 reels of filament to print, and the filament itself cost in the sale that I bought it in, it cost me £10 a roll of filament. So that means this body cost about £20 to print. But actually, I think it might have been less than that it used. I don't think it quite used 2 rolls. It's hard to tell because I'm using up rolls that I already had and bits and bobs. So I wasn't using a full roll at a time. But on the print files, before you send it to the printer, it tells you exactly how much it was. Oh, so typically about 2.2 kilograms of filament. And I think the rolls of filament I bought were 1 kilogram each. So that's just over 2 rolls. I quite like this. It's looking cool. Yeah, thank you people for joining me. I'm having a mental time at the moment. I've been trying to work evenings, but I'm so exhausted by the time it gets to evenings. And it's partly because for writing this book, I've got like 13 different guitars that I'm working on at the same time. And some of the bodies, for example, I'm painting and then stripping, or painting and then painting over. And I'm photographing at the same time. So I'm constantly in and out of my spray booth spraying stuff, in here sanding, trying to photograph. And I don't know, the amount of sanding I feel like I've been doing, I just feel so worn out in the evenings. But there you go. I haven't been able to work. This is the first evening I've worked this week, but I'm hoping to work Friday evening as well. And for various reasons, my family are out on Saturday morning. So I'll get some done on Saturday. And I think I'll do Sunday evening as well. I'm sort of at the exciting point where all the things that I've been, oh, where's that one for? Over here. All the things that I've been priming, etc., are all ready to do the sort of exciting paint jobs on now. So that purple one, I'm doing a special kind of spatter pattern on it, where it's going to be purple on the top with black splatter and black on the back with purple splatter. Yeah, so Ray's just confirmed that this is 2.2 kilograms of filament spool, which really, actually, in the long run, is not that much. 20 quid for a guitar. So what the discussion we had in the Guitar Builders Collective chat last week, when I said I'm painting these guitars, and Mark and Ray were saying, but you know, you got the beauty of the filament and the pattern that's printed. One reason I'm literally printing the guitars and doing the paintwork on them is, even though I have to go through that Bondo element and the sanding and stuff, it's still quicker and cheaper than me making more bodies for the book, especially as making bodies for the book is just taking up a lot of time. because I am currently making two, and that's taking me it's taking me over 2 days now to make them. So 20 quid to just print off a body to do the paintwork on is nothing. And then I've got the bodies to experiment with. Hence why I printed that one at the low quality. Because I feel like that low quality gives me the option to just muck around with the paint and not be too precious. And what Ray's just said, which was really interesting because he talked about this in the Guitar Builders Collective Chat podcast, is he tries to keep the weight of the filament that's used similar to what a guitar body would normally weigh, because he has had people pick his guitars up, and even though they're strong enough with a lighter print, the guitarists have felt they don't feel right because it's too light, maybe feels too fragile. I mean, I for one like the lightness of the other guitar, but I think maybe I get the idea if you're playing it live on stage, it might feel a bit weird. There goes the camera. Oh, completely. Right, let me try that one again. So what you can see at this angle is it's got this raised blue bit to key it in, which follows the edge. I think this looks like some crazy work of art. It looks a bit like a Kandinsky, maybe. Have I hammered that in far enough? Or I might lose the camera again. Hold on. There we are. So look, so far this stream has been 43 minutes. I think I'm well over halfway though. So what I'm going to do today is finish assembling this, and then my plan is next week I'm going to wire up one of them. I don't know if I'll wire up this one or the purple one. Let's push that to one side for the moment, and let's get on with the top part. So my plan here is I'm going to assemble the top part just like I did the bottom part, and then put it on. See if it fits on. The feeling being, if it's all flat, it shouldn't fit on properly, as opposed to putting one bit on and lining it up, gluing it in, and then putting the next bit on. Although maybe that makes more sense. Let me just have a think about this. So what I would do is weld this bit in place. And then put the next part in. I think that makes more sense now I'm thinking about it. Weld one part in at a time. Yeah, so Ray, I can tell you straight off the bat, having these position markers in, that's gone on. That is perfectly lined up on the sides. There's no give on it at all. That is brilliant. Because that's the issue I had last time, was trying to get it to line up properly. And I was using lots of clamps to clamp it in place. I don't think I'm going to even need the clamps on this one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to weld this on. Perfect. So I'm going to, so this might be quite quick. So the other thing, as Ray sort of alluded to there, is by having these two bodies that I printed that are the same, I can use the same pickups, etc., in them and just swap the body around easily to change it over. Now, the problem with this plastic weld is it seeps in quite quickly, or seems to dry quite quickly on the surface. So I'm working around trying to put it on liberally. Probably need a bigger brush, put it on liberally. But then I'm going to work around the edges on the internal bit. So yeah, this does make more sense actually to do it one bit at a time, because I don't think I could put enough plastic weld on to really do it justice if I had the whole body on the go. So look, that bit clips perfectly in there, and then I can go around the inner edges that you can't see like this. Right, so although I hammered these blue bits in really hard, so I was just reading, Ray said he had used these discs before, and I'm unsure why he didn't this time. I think they're brilliant. So although I hammered them in to going all the way, so they're really bonded into the base layer, there is a gap between them and the top. Obviously, you don't want it to be a perfect fit, because if you put them in and they're slightly uneven, then it's not going to, the top and bottom aren't going to sandwich together perfectly, but this has worked really well. Let's go around the edge with the plastic weld here. Super satisfying. Huh. Yeah, so something went wrong with my print, I think, because there's a bit of a gap on the side here where the actual print, let's see if I can turn it around. There, it looks like some of the layers have gone missing because it doesn't match up. If you can see, let's swap to this camera. Can you see that little gap? That little gap there. I think that's just where it's printed strangely. That might be the case for a bit of Bondo. All right, I can see now when I'm doing this bit here. See if I can move the camera. Here. That it is lifting away a bit. So when I put the plastic weld on, I really do need to hold it together. So I am going to go back in with the clamps. Let's just flip back to the other camera. Oh no, wait a minute. Using my clamps on something else. I think I've got enough here. There's something at the other end of my workshop that's currently being clamped together. So thanks everyone that's still here. Eight people still here. I mean, this is literally watching me glue something together. I don't know how exciting that can possibly be. If only I had some brilliant anecdotes to tell you. Huh, where could that bit go? That bit does go there, right? So that would mean, oh, I thought I'd left a section out that I hadn't printed then. Right, so that piece can come on here. And that blue disc holds it perfectly in place. Excellent. So let's get, I think the best thing to do for this then is to go right around the edge quite thickly. You can see how quickly it dries right around the front edge where I'm not going to be able to put any to seep in without accidentally getting it on the surfaces of the guitar. And I don't want to get it on the surface of the guitar because what the Bondo does is sort of ruin the surface a bit. So I can do it like that. Now that edge is secure. Put my clamp on. Yeah, perfectly lining up. Excellent work. And then I can, let's put another one on. And then I can go around the inside here, except, where's my brush gone? Right, the other thing, oh, it's in the bottle, literally in the bottle. This is what happens to me the whole time in my workshop. It's why I've been 3D printing my jigs and tools in this bright red, just so they stand out, so I can see them as I'm going along. All right, I'm just go back to see what's going on in the chat. Hey, John's here. Hey, John, welcome. Right, interesting chat. If you're watching in the future, go back and look at the live chat. It's Ray partly talking about why he printed the blue bits this height. Barry's asking about PVC pipe weld. Do you know what? Next week when I do the wiring, I've got pipe weld in my spray booth. Let me bring some in and just weld some spare bits together, or do it before then so we can do a test. I think the pipe weld I've got, the difference between that and this is like a really thin liquid, almost like water, and it seeps in. And the pipe weld I've got is thicker, a bit like a sort of washed down wood glue, watered down wood glue. Yeah, and there's a discussion about the previous one I built, the one I built at the low print resolution, or the strength, not resolution, that's not the right word. So the infill strength from the wall, the number of walls was different. It is holding up. What I'm going to do is compare the weight of this to that afterwards. Sorry, not afterwards, before next time. And then I'm going to assemble that one and just keep that other one as my go-to. Maybe we'll come back in 6 months' time and work out has it held up as much. So if you remember, the parts I printed in green were the higher density infill. The exception is actually these two, because I remember the bottom half of this one is in green and the top's in black because I run out of green filament then. So these two, so the green in the middle there, and these two and the two pieces I'm doing now are at a higher density infill, so they're stronger pieces. And then the kind of orange, white and red, they're a lower density, they don't have to be quite as strong. Oh, now this is going to be a problem because I'm going to have to use my mallet, and it's hard to use the mallet when the clamps are on, I think. Yeah, I'm going to have to take the clamps off. Let's assume the pipe weld's done its job by now. Oh. So I'm going to, there we go. And I'm going to go, not pipe weld, plastic weld. I'm going to go around the edge here now with a plastic weld and try not to get it on the surface. There we go. What you can't tell is everything below me is falling down. Oh, there goes that camera again. Yeah, something's definitely happened with my join here. It's not fitting very well at all in that part. That's the bit I said earlier. Let me spotlight this. Can you see here? Let's lean the camera like that. Can you see here that bit didn't print very well, so for some reason it's just not matching up. I don't know what's happened there. Do you know what it might have been? I printed it and had to swap the reel because it'd run out. I might have printed it overnight and come back in the morning, and maybe that's had something to do with it resting overnight. Anyway, let's clamp this up. I'll switch back to the other camera in a minute. Oh, you've got a good bit here of oh yeah, it's not really clamping there because of the layers. Yeah, because it's so curved, it's not clamping so well there. You've got a lovely bit of layer line there, which I'm hoping this paint technique that I want to try on this guitar will really emphasize. Got to stop putting my brush in there because now it's going all over my fingers. I am sure something's going to happen to me in the long run because of all the toxic stuff I use and breathe in and get on my skin all the time. But it's too much fun. I try and take precautions. Mark from Hilditch Guitar was one of our first guests on the Guitar Builders Collective podcast, and he was talking about how he in his spray booth has one of those uniforms that goes all over him, so he's sort of totally encased, and then it's air fed, the mask that he wears, from a separate feed outside of his spray booth. And that seems to be the way forward, because I'm finding the last week, even though I'm wearing a full mask, the clothes I'm wearing just are absolutely covered in stuff afterwards. So look, I'm going to hold this down for a moment. I can see, let's see if I can get this on that camera. Where is it? Just there. I don't know, the camera quality is not good enough. But as I squeeze it down, you can just about see the plastic weld coming out the edge there. Yeah, that's my tea going on in there. And yes, right, thanks, Ray. So that's my tea going on there. Yes, okay, so I've had some warpage. Ray saying what's had is warpage and the corner has lifted away from the bed during the printing. Now, I can see actually on the surface here, it is a bit odd to print. So I reckon if this was Ray that made this, he would have spotted that straight away. And I didn't, because it's only the second guitar I printed. I haven't printed that much in general, so I wouldn't have noticed that. I can completely notice it now. That's what's happened. That bit has slightly deformed because of it. But you know what? I'm going to embrace it, especially with what I've said I'm going to do on top. Embrace part of the process. Yeah, because I can feel here like it's nice and flat over this line, and over here it's a bit textured and a bit warped. Let's do it from this camera angle. You can just about see here where that gap is as it comes around. There's a sort of bit of warpage there. It's sort of sunken in basically. So here it's nice and flat, and there it's sunk. Oh, my battery's running out. Let's plug it back in. John's saying he wished he had a recording set up for his next build. Oh yeah. Ray just pointed out that that surface, he said, looks amazing. So it's at the highest quality, and it's got ironing had on it. I wondered if some of this was from the ironing, because I've never done the ironing on the surface before, and it definitely doesn't look as good in some places as previous builds. But then in other places, it's super smooth. It's got like that warping I can see has happened over here as well. Not warping, that sort of surface. It's just a bit rougher. Anyway, I don't know. It's all a learning curve for me. Let's put the next part in. Right, how's this going to work? Oh no, now I'm thinking maybe I should have assembled it all separately. Has some of it slipped? Is it not going to match up? What a pain. Let's see. What a disaster. Maybe I should have assembled the bits separately and put them on top, like I was originally going to do. Let's try it again. Yes, it's getting there. That's fine. So I'm just going to go around this outer edge here. Try not to get any on the surface. Now, the other thing is part of this is going under the pick guard anyway. Perfect. Let's clamp this on. I'm going to switch my camera and see if I can show you the problem I had with some of the surfaces. So here, look, the surface is, I don't know how well this is shown up. It's so smooth. You can't see any of the print marks at all. But then I've got this bit. I don't know. Let's see if I turn that light off. Will that help? Maybe that's casting a bit of shadow on it. No, it's not really. It's like quite bumpy. And I wasn't sure if that was slightly to do with the ironing process, where it sort of smooths the surface, and whether it was the head of, or whatever it does to smooth. I assume it's the print head has done something to it. So sorry, Ray, I misunderstood. Is the ironing the reason for the super finish, or for those little lumpy bits? Is that side effect that's happened there? Right, we're doing well. We've got 7 people watching, despite the fact we've been going for an hour. Nearly finished now, 2 pieces left. I wonder how many of those 7 were here at the beginning. Thank you everyone that is here still, that has joined in, and thank you everyone that's watching in the future. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to do these live streams every Wednesday, and they're replacing, for this year anyway, my highly edited video content, just as a quicker way of getting content out there while I'm trying to build the business, write the book, and grow the podcast. I just don't have time for video editing. I was spending like 3 days a week editing the videos, doing the podcast, uploading shorts. That gives me 2 days a week to make guitars. I can't run a business like that. Oh yeah, so the ironing is what gives it super smooth finish. I wonder why I'm getting these strange lumps. Ray, I might take some better photos of them for you and show you the better photos at some point, because you might have some advice on what's causing those issues that I'm having there. Yeah, and I mentioned it before, but if anyone's watching in the future and you want to join my channel, I do extra live streams for the members of the channel. I also actually, as well as doing the extra live streams, I'm putting out an extra video each week about the process of writing the book, which I'm finding fascinating. I hope other people find fascinating as well. The idea of how the commission went about, how I'm putting things together, the process of making guitars just for the book, not to selling, and the cost of it all. Oh, it's expensive. I'll come back in a year once it's published and do a thing about how much money I've lost or made on the book as well. Do you know what? I'm just move this camera off the surface there that's wobbling. That'd be better. What a funny angle. Oh, and mute me. There we go. There we go. Let's get some. I like the little red section. Definitely feels like an artist's work, this. Could it be a Kandinsky I said earlier, I think? Maybe it's a Mondrian. Who knows? Oh, that's a bit annoying about that bit that warped, that lifted up. If I'd spotted it earlier, I could have reprinted that part. But never mind. I will put a little bit of body filler in. Yeah, it feels pretty smooth though, the linking on it. So I've got one more thing to show you before I put that last piece in and call it quits for the day. No, that's not going to clip there. A little clip here. Yeah, it's too much of a slope to clip on that bit. Ooh. Yeah, don't forget, I hate doing this. You can do a super thanks if these things are useful. Oh, some things have fallen out. One of my guitars has fallen out of the stand underneath the table. Too much hammering. I'm just going to change my video. So hanging up here, Ray said this guitar should be called the Bitzer, bit stuck anywhere. So this is the Meteor I printed the other and put together on the other stream, which spent 5 weeks with the neck on it and didn't warp or anything. I have painted it. I mentioned this earlier on. This is the first coat of purple. It needs a sand back and a next coat on it. And I'm going to be doing a spatter pattern on it. And this is the one that you'll see it whatever next week. But I think this is the one I'm going to wire up next week in next Wednesday's live stream. Same time, same place. But this one will be finished as well, ready to put together. So the process of getting that like it is, let me explain that while I put this together. So I took some advice from Owen in the last live stream when we talked about 3D printing, and it was something I thought I was going to do anyway, which is to use a decent adhesion promoter. So the adhesion promoter that I use is by a company called High Coat. They're a British company, and they make paints for cars. So the adhesion promoter, I think, is basically what they use to go, hey, thanks Barry, take care, see you next week, hopefully. The adhesion promoter is what they use, I think, on bumpers of cars to help the paints that they make adhere to it. And then they also sell different types of primer in a can. So I used their high build primer. And essentially what I did was I started off by doing a very light sand all over the guitar, which helped flatten off some areas. I used my orbital sander, and the way the orbital sander works is it spins round, but the amount it spins depends on the pressure you put on it. So if I'm pressing lightly, it does spin and sand, but it doesn't overheat the areas. Making sure I moved around a lot and not staying on one area too long, so it didn't melt the plastic at all, but it seemed totally fine. Then what I did is I put Bondo over a lot of the surface, or car body filler, or whatever you want to call it. I used a flexible car body filler, and then I sanded that back, and that kind of filled in a lot of the gaps. And then I did another coat of the filler and sanded it back. So what you ended up with were patches where the surface was slightly lower. So for example, here where we've got a jigsaw piece, this red bit is slightly higher than the green. So what would have happened is the body filler, which is white, would have filled in that area to make it nice and level, and then faded off a bit. So then once I'd done that, I sprayed the adhesion promoter on it and left it 10 minutes, and then did 2 coats 10 minutes apart of the high build filler, followed by 24 hours waiting for it to dry, and then another light sand back, and that revealed some more areas that needed a bit more Bondo. So I put that on, and then sanded that back, did another 2 coats or 3 coats, sorry, of the body filler, of the primer, sorry. Sanded that primer back lightly, ready for the paint coat, and then that's had 3 coats of the purple put on. By 3 coats, I always do whatever spray can I'm using. I do 3 coats in a session, 10 to 15 minutes apart, depending on the temperature and the recommended flash times. So then those 3 coats there are going to have a light sand tomorrow, and then 1 more coat of purple put on, and then 1 coat of, or 2 coats of the clear varnish that I'm using put on. Then it's going to be left the weekend to then have the spray pattern put on Monday, ready for Wednesday's live stream. Oh, John, I'm glad I'm making you rethink things. I hope in a nice way. Are you rethinking because of thinking about the finishing on it, or just the way you're assembling it? I mean, what I'm trying to do with these live streams is give people my approach and hear back from others either in the live stream or later in the comments. If you're watching later in the comments, let me know what your technique is. And I do agree the plastic printed finish is great, but there's so many artistic finishes you can get on a guitar, and I don't see why you have to make it wood to put the artistic paint finish on. There we go. Let's have a better look at this. So, apart from the fact it's got those sort of keying discs in, the things you saw in that bluey teal colour, the turquoise colour even, that were the circles that went around it and the little bar that went here. Apart from that, I think this process of assembling it and then putting the weld on a knot between each part wasn't necessarily any quicker and wasn't necessarily any better than the previous way I did it, because it's still it's just the same sort of finish, as in bits are slightly raised, some bits are quite level as before. Maybe that would just come with practice. So I think maybe the other way that I did it in the last stream, where I put the weld on between each part, pieced it together, is potentially better, because it does mean there's more bits welded together. But having those key bits in that line it up mean that the edges are so perfectly straight. That's the way to do it. Yeah, so look, Mr. Glyn, I'm wearing his top. Mr. Glyn's pick. I keep calling him Mr. Glyn. I should say Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups. He is printing one off and assembling it, and he put his together in all these different colours as well. So his really looks like a jigsaw, and I've got to say, it looks really cool. So have a check out of him and his live stream when it comes up, sorry, him on our next live stream when he'll maybe have his finished guitar, because there's definitely something about having that all together as a jigsaw and really emphasizing the jigsaw that is cool. Why is my camera seems to have frozen? Oh no, it's just frozen on my screen. You can see it right there. Try that again. That's weird. Yeah, so this camera's, I can see it's working on the live stream, but I can't see it on my camera properly. There you go. So he's taken advantage of the jigsaw where I've just randomly printed. So maybe, you know, having all the greens next to each other there would have been nicer in a different color. I think the back looks really cool. I think that turquoise color in it looked excellent as well. Yeah, but like I said earlier on, I'm going to do a paint job on this, where the paint job will hopefully emphasize some of those joins and some of those layers that you can see, and really make it stand out and look even cooler. I'm tempted to do it so that some of the color of the plastic shows through as well. I'm not 100% sure yet whether it will be given a very light prime first. Cool. All right. Well, so listen, thank you all again. I really appreciate you being here. If you're watching in the future, let me know if this is helpful. I am Devil and Sons on social media, and it'd be great if you're making a 3D guitar and you've been somehow inspired by this. Tag me so I can see what you're doing. Fantastic. Right, what's coming up? So members get a video on Friday. This time it's going to be showing behind the scenes of my photo setup that I've been using for the book. Members get on Monday the live stream at 3 p.m. where I'll be showing part of my workshop. And then everybody gets next Wednesday this again. Next Wednesday I'm doing the wiring up, 9 p.m. here live on YouTube. And next Thursday, Ray, Tasmaniac Guitars, is joining me, Mark Gutierrez, Aaron from Adair Guitars, Glyn from Mr. Glyn's Pickups, and Jack from JC Guitars to talk about 3D printing on our Thursday live stream, the Guitar Builders Collective podcast, which you can watch on YouTube, but you can also get anywhere you get your podcasts from. Fantastic. Right. It's 10:15. This is one of the latest I've been up for a long time. I'm knackered. Good night. Happy strumming.